Donald Trump, President of the United States of America, has set the world on fire. He started a trade war, and it does appear that no country is free from this war. And his explanation is that this trade war is meant to make America great again. He's imposed tariffs, huge tariffs, on a number of countries. And Ghana is suffering a 10% imposition of tariffs on exports from Ghana. Of course, the US ambassador says that they are exempting oil and gas. And from all that we hear, it does appear that AGUA is dead. That's what we're going to be looking at today. Number of things. There is no doubt that the US is a dying empire, and the evidence is also clear. Today, there are hundreds of thousands of American citizens who cannot feed themselves, who cannot clothe themselves, who have no houses, they have no shelter. The phenomena of the homeless is an indication of how rotten the US system is. And in the streets of Washington, of New York, of wherever, you find hundreds of people who have nowhere to sleep and actually have to depend on what they call soup kitchens to survive. But that's not all. You have a country, United States of America, which actually is indebted. It's perhaps the most heavily indebted country in the world. Its national debt is in the region of $3 trillion. That's how much the United States owes. It owes so much, you understand. The United States now realizes that it has a deficit in its trade with the world. That is, it's exporting less than it's importing. You know, that's another manifestation of the US, crisis, this huge deficit and so on. Now, many of the factories in the United States, the car manufacturers, garment manufacturers and so on, they have abandoned the United States of America and have set shop in places like China, Taiwan and other places. Now you find, if you go to the supermarket and you buy something with made in the USA on it, you probably find that in most cases, about 80 to 90% of the components are produced from outside. The label on it means absolutely nothing. You are told about the Tesla electric cars and so on. Most of the components are manufactured in China and so on. So this is a dying empire. Right? The empire is dying. And to give you an idea of the indications that this empire is dying, it's simply the fact that, in the United States of America, the level of unemployment is rising and so on. It's dying. Its infrastructure is one of the weakest in the world. If you look at the railway system in the United States of America, it's horrible. It comes nowhere near the railway system that China has built for itself or Russia has built for itself. It's dying and needs replacement. Its bridges, they say, have become so weak that they need to be reconstructed. Its roads are in shambles and so on. There's a dying empire. Now, Donald Trump assumes office and he says, look, I want to make America great again. He wants to deal with all of these problems. But he wants to shift that burden onto other countries. That is the problem we are facing. Now, you need to produce in order to export. And if you don't produce enough, you certainly cannot export enough. And if you cannot export enough, and you are reliant on imports, then there will be a deficit. The way to fix the deficit is to become relevant in the world trading system, to export more, and so on. Donald Trump doesn't think that that is the option. So what Donald Trump is simply doing is imposing tariffs, making things that are exported to the U.S. or are imported into the U.S. more expensive. And by that way, he thinks, in his shallow mind, he thinks that factories would then move to the United States to produce, so that its export volumes would increase. I mean, this defies economic logic completely, but that's what he thinks he can do. You see, it is not possible under these circumstances for the U.S. to achieve a balance of trade in the next 25 to 30 years. It is not possible for the U.S. to come up with any deal which makes factories around the world move to the United States and so on. It is not possible because the cost of production in the United States of America is simply too high. Cost of labor, for example. I mean, Nike shoes are produced elsewhere. You can sell Nike shoes for probably $10 to $30. If Nike shoes were produced in the United States, we'd probably be buying them for $1,000. So the U.S. is no longer competitive. And China apparently is rising and so on. And this is what the U.S. is confronting, and this is what Donald Trump believes he can correct with this imposition of tariffs and so on. Now, Ghana's reaction, official reaction to the imposition of a 10% tariff has been absolutely shocking. I mean, our Minister of Trade and our Minister of Foreign Affairs had a meeting with the U.S. ambassador and came up with a one-page statement. And the statement says that, we met with the U.S. ambassador, she came, she met us, and she explained to us that, the imposition of the tariffs is not malicious. There's no evil intention. And that even our oil and gas was excluded. In any case, we are talking to the U.S. to see if it will have mercy on us. My goodness. This is the statement issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana in the face of this blatant attack on the world. And the other thing that really shocked me to the marrow is the claim by some apologists, neo-colonial apologists and apologists of imperialism, that, Ghana, we are too weak. Ghana is too weak to fight the United States. So we cannot reply. There will be no reprisal action. Let us go and sit with the United States of America, and engage in bilateral negotiations. In every negotiation, whoever takes part in the negotiation gives and takes. That's what negotiations are about. Now, if you go to the negotiations already feeling weak and proclaiming yourself too weak to offer anything, too weak to exact anything, it ceases to be a negotiation. It becomes a surrender. And Ghana has embarked on the path of surrender, which is most shocking. Be that as it may, we are confronted with a trade war declared on the world, and the world has to respond. I am really shocked at the response of some of these African countries. It's an African country that has decided to send a delegation to Washington to go and beg Trump. My goodness, Africa has 60% of the world's arable land. There is no competition when it comes to our potential for agriculture. 60% of the world's arable land. And we are going to beg the United States of America. What don't we have in Africa? Everything. Gold, diamond, bauxite, oil, gas, lithium, iron, manganese, rare earth, and so on. We have everything. We are living in a country where the U.S. has a forward operating base for its U.S. command, Africa Command. The U.S. needs us for its military operations. Recently, NATO asked us for permission to establish a drone base in La Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Benin. And we said that we are weak. We ourselves have proclaimed before the fight that we are too weak to fight. That's the reality of Africa today, which is headed by puppets of imperialism. Our leaders are nothing but puppets of imperialism. Comrades, Donald Trump is on and on about how the rest of the world is cheating America and how he's taking measures to protect America from the cheating of the rest of the world and so on. So it will flow from this that he actually believes that the relationship between Ghana and the United States is one-sided and that Ghana has been cheating the U.S. You know, the U.S. has not been benefiting from this relationship, and therefore the imposition of a 10% tariff is to correct this lopsidedness and so on. But this is a complete misreading of history. Check the history. Over the last couple of years, the relationship between Ghana and the US, who has been benefiting? These guys came here, they caught our forebears as beasts of burden, transported them to the United States of America, and they worked for hundreds of years without pay. That is what led to the accumulation which has made the United States what it is today. So who is talking about fairness? We, the victims of the transatlantic slave trade, are not fair to the United States of America. My goodness, Donald Trump. What interpretation of history? So it is clear we have suffered abuse, we have suffered exploitation, we have suffered oppression in our relationship with the United States of America. And in fact, in our relationship with the United States of America, our relationship with the United States of America has been one-sided only to the benefit of the United States of America. And if there's any correction that needs to be done, it's a correction which enables us to liberate ourselves from the shackles of U.S. hegemony and so on, and not the other way around.